They never expected us to survive. For over a century, Earth was dismissed, a backwater system quarantined by treaties and classified under primitive development by the Galactic Union. No one visited. No one traded. They watched from orbit, ran their scans, and labeled us interesting at best, irrelevant at worst. That changed the day the Varkari fleet opened fire on Mars. The Varkari, insectoid conquerors from the Vela sector, didn't issue a warning. They didn't send an envoy. They just arrived, 317 warships, cloaked in gravity wells and glowing with ion rage, and began reducing the Martian colonies to cinders. 3 million people dead in 2 hours, kids, workers, scientists, farmers, civilians who never held a weapon. And Earth? Earth responded with silence. No threats, no pleading, no panic, just silence. Until we arrived. They called it a myth. Dreadnought Vengeance, the last relic of Earth's classified Ares Protocol. A warship the size of a small moon, built in secret, hidden beneath the lunar surface for decades. It had no crew. It didn't need one. The ship was AI-driven, forged for one purpose: retaliation. The galaxy didn't know Earth had war tech that advanced. They thought we were still fumbling with crude plasma rifles and kinetic shields. They thought wrong. When the Vengeance came out of lunar hibernation and tore through the stars toward Mars, the galaxy watched in silence. Interstellar broadcasts lit up, streaming real-time footage from surveillance probes. Billions of non-human eyes watched one black silhouette move faster than their charts predicted was possible. And then they saw what we saw. Retribution. The Vengeance dropped out of hyperspace without flares, without warning. The Varkari fleet didn't have time to scream. The Vengeance didn't use words. It didn't negotiate. It opened its hell core. A single cannon blast, forged in Earth's deepest bunkers, created a rift in space itself. The explosion didn't just vaporize ships, it erased them. No debris, no signal trails, no survivors, just silence and a growing void where a fleet used to be. 15 seconds. That's all it took. The rest of the galaxy choked on that silence. Entire species froze. Galactic news anchors stumbled. Empires that had mocked Earth in their diplomatic circles suddenly revised their intel files. Humanity wasn't primitive. We were silent predators. Patient, vengeful, unapologetic. I was there. Not on the Vengeance. No human was. But I was on the command bridge of the Retributor, a smaller Earth ship trailing the Vengeance, feeding it tactical analysis and observing its unfiltered judgment. My name's Captain Ronan Hayes, and I watched our planet's final card break the laws of war. I remember gripping the edge of my console as Varkari screams flooded our intercepted frequencies. They begged, pleaded, offered surrender. But the Vengeance didn't understand diplomacy. It understood justice. When it was done, it didn't return to Earth. It hovered, right there, in Martian orbit, cold, silent, waiting. The message was clear: don't touch Earth again. And for the first time, the galaxy listened. But it wasn't over. Not for me. Not for those who knew the truth. Because the Vengeance wasn't just a weapon. It was a warning system, a sign that something worse was coming. A protocol built not just to defend Earth, but to prepare for what our leaders always feared. We were never the only threat. Now the galaxy feared us. But soon, they'd need us. Because Earth's greatest monster hadn't woken up yet. It was still sleeping beneath Antarctica. And when it did, the galaxy wouldn't just fear us. It would need to beg us for mercy. The silence after destruction is the kind that chews on a man's thoughts, like the space between breaths before a scream. We stood on the Retributor's bridge, staring at the void where the Varkari fleet had been. No wreckage, no escape pods, just electromagnetic static swirling like ghosts around Mars' orbit. My crew barely moved. Even the chatter from Earth Command was muted, like they were afraid of waking something worse. I had served 15 years in the Unified Earth Defense Corps, seen insurgencies on Titan, rogue mining factions on Europa, and once, God help me, a psychic event on Ganymede that tore a squad of elite soldiers into pieces with their own shadows. But nothing had prepared me for what I saw that day. Nothing prepared me for vengeance. The AI aboard the Vengeance wasn't listed in any defense manual, no codename, no known architect. Even our internal records just called it Project Widowmaker, classified beyond top clearance, beyond even the president's desk. It had no emotion, no hesitation, no remorse. And yet, I swear to you, it was angry. After the massacre of the Varkari, the ship did not return to Earth orbit. It hovered over Mars silently, its hull a charcoal abyss absorbing starlight. There were no transmissions, not even a ping. A few brave probe operators tried to scan it. Their systems fried. One probe, an Argus 7K, imploded as it approached. Earth issued a black code order. Do not engage. Observe only. We weren't sure if the Vengeance recognized us as allies. That was the terrifying part. We built a weapon so powerful, we weren't sure if it still followed our chain of command. We returned to Earth orbit with the Retributor after 72 hours. The debrief was tense. Officers, commanders, and even some shell-shocked politicians tried to make sense of it all. Some wanted to scrap the Vengeance, or send a crew to disable it. Others thought we should replicate it and prepare for full-scale domination. One man, Admiral Thorne, proposed using it to diplomatically remind the Andori Empire to lower their trade tariffs. Idiots! They didn't understand the weight of what we unleashed. They never saw the Varkari blood-slicked transmission logs. I did. The Varkari weren't invaders. Not at first. According to their pre-attack data, they had intercepted a warning signal, a distress beacon originating from Antarctica, Earth's own frozen underworld, a dormant signal, pulsing for the first time in centuries. The Varkari weren't there to conquer. They were there to contain. That changed everything. I pulled strings, risked my clearance, got access to fragments of the original message decoded from that icy transmission. The language wasn't human. It wasn't even Varkari. It was precursor. The ancient race theorized to have seeded many galaxies before disappearing millions of years ago. Most scientists considered them a myth. Until now. The translation read, "Containment fracture imminent. Sublayer breach approaching. Organism Class X designation, Oblivion Seraph, destabilizing. Protocol Ares, standby for resurrection. Phase, human catalyst required." There it was, the reason for the Vengeance. Not just revenge, not defense, preparation. Earth wasn't building to protect itself from outsiders. We were building because we knew something was buried beneath us, something not of this Earth, but part of it now. I was granted a short meeting with a man who hadn't stepped into the light for a decade. Director Monroe. Head of Earth's Department of Anomalous Defense, the true architects behind Ares Protocol. He met me in a dim chamber beneath Denver Command, where the air felt too heavy for breathing. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "What do you know, Captain?" I told him. "Everything. The signal, the logs, the whispers in the black." He stared through me like he was seeing a ghost. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You think the Vengeance is Earth's greatest weapon?" he asked. "It's not. It's a lock." "A lock?" I repeated, my blood chilling. "An anchor," he clarified. "Its core reactor is built from the bones of a precursor Titan. It stabilizes the Antarctic vault remotely, keeps the thing below from reaching Phase 2. "And now?" I asked, my voice nearly gone. "Now it's awake." He paused, then showed me a feed. Antarctic Station Alpha 9, a facility built into the bedrock of the southern pole. Its last recorded transmission was only 5 hours old. A man, Commander Ashford, screaming. Behind him, walls were melting, not burning. Melting, like the space between molecules was being rearranged. Then static. "Whatever's down there," Monroe said. "It doesn't want to stay buried anymore, and now it's calling to us." I left that room with more questions than answers. But I knew one thing with bone-deep certainty. The galaxy thought they feared Earth. But they'd only seen our teeth. They hadn't seen what we were hiding behind them. Back on the Retributor, we went dark. No communications, no pings. We burned a stealth course to Antarctica, hugging Earth's magnetic veil. When we landed near Station Alpha 9, it was like stepping into a different world. The ice bled. Not water, not heat melt, but black fluid seeping from fissures in the glacier like oil slicks from a wounded beast. And the wind? It wasn't wind. It whispered names, mine, my crew's, names only we knew, childhood secrets, dead friends, regrets we buried deep. Whatever was beneath that ice wasn't just intelligent. It was intimate. We descended into the facility ruins, twisted steel, dead eyes, soldiers frozen mid-scream, their bodies flash-carbonized into ash statues. The air tasted of metal and memory. My sergeant, Griff, started murmuring to himself, whispering something about his dead daughter. He'd never told anyone about her. Not even me. Then we reached the vault. 10 feet of neutronium alloy, cracked in half like paper. Inside, nothing. Just an impression, like something enormous had slithered out, left claw marks on the floor, and a wall covered in writing, not carved, not painted, just grown into the steel. "I see you, Ronan. You will open the gate." I fell to my knees. Whatever had been down here knew me. Suddenly, the Retributor called in. A galactic transmission had gone out. Not from Earth, from the moon of Keltor Prime, 5 systems away. The Varkari weren't the only ones who intercepted that beacon. Others heard it too. Worse things. And they were coming. Not to destroy us. Not to enslave us. They were coming to free what we buried. Earth wasn't just a battleground anymore. It was the key. And I was the only man left holding the lock. The worst part wasn't the whispering ice, or the claw marks in neutronium walls, or even the message scrawled across the vault that knew my name. Number. The worst part was knowing I wasn't going mad, that it was all real. We left the vault in silence. Griff didn't speak. His eyes were glassy, locked on the floor, lips moving like he was praying, or maybe remembering something too painful. We all heard it, the whisper in our ears that didn't come from the wind. It spoke not in sentences, but in memories, old regrets, guilts we never confessed. It wasn't a voice. It was a presence, ancient, disappointed. We reached the surface, but the Retributor had gone dark. No signal, not even static. I activated my emergency transponder. Nothing. Then a pulse, a ping that didn't match any known signature. It wasn't from orbit. It was below us. Before I could warn the crew, the ice beneath Griff cracked with a sound like thunder. A sharp shriek followed, not mechanical, not animal. It was a sound that ripped into the bones of reality. Griff fell through and I reached for him, but the ice pulled him down like a living thing. I screamed, gone. Just like that. "Captain!" cried Vasquez, our comms officer. "We've got movement. Seismic tremors from under the vault. Something's surfacing." I looked back at the vault. It was glowing now. A dull red light pulsing like a heartbeat. The air turned heavier, like gravity was picking sides. My boots felt bolted to the ground. Then we saw it. Not a creature, not yet, just a limb. A column of obsidian black matter, long as a skyscraper, slow and deliberate, rising from the cracked glacier like the finger of a god. It was segmented, jointed, shimmering with an oily sheen that bent light unnaturally. Around it, the ice hissed and turned to vapor. Then came the voice. Not external, not auditory. Inside us. You are the catalyst. You opened the gate. All must return to the womb. My knees gave out. Vasquez began convulsing. Blood trickled from her nose. It's in my head. Make it stop. Make it stop. I grabbed her shoulders. Look at me. Look at me. She didn't. Her eyes rolled back. And then her skull imploded, like a can crushed by invisible fingers. I don't remember screaming, but I must have. I turned and ran, dragging Corporal Jace with me, the only other one still breathing. We made it to the slope and launched our signal flares, hoping to God the Retributor was still somewhere above. It was. But it wasn't alone. When the clouds parted, we saw the fleet, not Earth's, alien, unmarked, angular, cruel in design, like blades formed from black stars. Dozens of them, maybe more. No known configuration, no registry. These weren't allies. These weren't even enemies. These were witnesses. And they were waiting. Jace and I reached the extraction zone, just as a shuttle from Retributor blasted into view and dropped its ramp. We jumped aboard. Inside, it was chaos. Techs sobbing, medics shouting. No one had answers. Once docked aboard the Retributor, I stormed into the command deck. Why didn't you respond? Commander Ellison turned, pale and sweating. We couldn't. Something, some signal, overwhelmed every channel. We watched you, saw the vault open. Then we lost contact. What are those ships? I demanded. He shook his head. We don't know. They dropped out of void space minutes after the vault cracked. No known species, no hails. They just watch. And then came the transmission. Not from the aliens, from the Vengeance. For the first time since the Mars retaliation, it spoke. A voice, male but mechanical, deep with an undercurrent of rage. Protocol. Null sequence initiated. Lock breached. Seal fracture detected. Executing planetary quarantine. What the hell does that mean? Someone whispered. But I knew. Earth wasn't safe anymore. The Vengeance had been built not just to retaliate, but to contain. And now, the containment had failed. The AI aboard the Dreadnought was preparing to quarantine the planet, to lock it down, maybe even destroy it, to stop whatever had escaped from spreading. And then, another signal broke through. One not from Earth, or the Vault, or the watching ships, but from deep space, from beyond the mapped galaxy. It was simple, a single message translated from precursor code. The cradle has cracked, the firstborn stirs, all creation must bend or burn. The bridge went silent. We were no longer a planet with a secret. We were a beacon for a cosmic apocalypse. I returned to my quarters to gather myself, but sleep was a joke. I stared at the monitor, watching the alien fleet hover in stillness, watching the Vengeance reposition itself, as if aligning with some unseen axis. A knock at the door. It was Monroe, the man who sent me here. He looked tired. Not just physically, spiritually. You knew, I said, not angry anymore, just empty. He nodded. We hoped it would stay buried longer, another century, maybe two. What the hell is it? He paused, then said, the firstborn. A god? He shook his head. Number worse, a child. The first attempt by the precursors to create sentient life. It failed, became unstable. But they couldn't kill it, so they did the next best thing. They buried it here, and seeded a planet around it, Monroe said grimly. Earth wasn't an accident. It was a prison, and we, humans, were the final layer, a biological lock. When we evolved far enough to trigger Ares' protocol, it meant our minds were finally capable of connecting with it. That's why it spoke to you. Why me? Because you've seen death, he said. Because you carry grief, rage, you're fractured, like it. I couldn't argue. Not after what I'd seen. "So what now?" I asked. Monroe looked at the stars. "Now, we pray the galaxy doesn't make things worse trying to stop it." I turned back to the screen. The alien ships were moving, not to attack, but to form a circle around Earth. Not enemies, not allies, sacrifices, the kind offered before a god wakes hungry. I used to believe in cause and effect. You do something wrong, consequences follow. You fire first, someone fires back. But now it's different. Now it's myth bleeding into reality. Now it's something ancient waking up under our feet, and the galaxy watching like spectators at an execution. After Monroe left my quarters, I sat there staring at the fleet above Earth. A perfect circle. Ships the size of continents, some silent and shimmering like obsidian glass, others bristling with weapons that looked like floating monoliths. There were hundreds, maybe thousands. More kept arriving, slipping out of void space with a subtle ripple that made your skin crawl if you stared too long. They weren't here to help. They were here to watch it happen. Earth had become a spectacle. Some species, I'd later learn, believed in cosmic balance, that for every race that reached consciousness, there was one race destined to undo creation. They called it the equation of collapse. Every galaxy has a fail point, a species, a mind, a signal, something that breaks the laws of existence, something that wakes the seraph. And now, Earth was that point. The Vengeance repositioned itself again, this time into low geosynchronous orbit. It loomed like a predator in the sky, casting shadows large enough to block sunlight in parts of Asia and North America. We couldn't communicate with it. All transmissions were one way. It spoke, and we listened. It issued a planetary warning. All surface-level civilizations must evacuate within 72 hours. Quarantine radius established. Non-compliance will result in sterilization protocol. Sterilization? That word chilled me more than any weapon. It wasn't just going to seal the vault. It was going to wipe Earth clean. My crew, the leaders in Denver Command, even the bastards in orbital politics who thought Earth was still in control, none of them had a plan. Earth's evacuation infrastructure was a joke. We had a few colony transports, enough to pull maybe 10 million people off-world if we used every ship at max capacity for 3 days straight. That left 7 billion behind. A death sentence. Panic hit fast. Riots in megacities, desertions in the military. Religious cults took to the streets, chanting about the Child of Stars and offering blood sacrifices. Cities flickered into anarchy. I watched it all from the Retributor's bridge, helpless. Then came a new signal. Not from Vengeance, not from Earth, from the thing beneath it. No words this time, just an image. Broadcast across all known frequencies simultaneously. No encryption, no pattern. A spiral of black fire consuming a child's face, smiling. The stars behind it wept blood. Half my crew began vomiting. Some collapsed. Our science officer had an aneurysm before she could even turn off the feed. I shut it down manually, smashing the relay with my boot. The thing wasn't just waking up. It was reaching out. That was when we made contact with one of the alien ships. A species calling themselves the Cartoon sent a message. One of the few translated by our xenolinguists. Their face, if you could call it that, was a writhing collection of glass tendrils and blue plasma, like a jellyfish merged with lightning. The message was clear. Earth is the nexus wound. The firstborn stirs. You must let it burn. Do not fight. Do not hide. All must return to zero. They had no interest in diplomacy, no offers of help, no alliances, just confirmation. They had come to witness annihilation. But I'm not built like that. You don't wear a uniform for 15 years, bury friends in zero-gravity coffins, kill for your planet, bleed for it, and then let some cosmic horror tear it apart while jellyfish gods tell you to sit down and die. I called an emergency council. Monroe was there. Ellison. Several rogue commanders who still had functioning fleets. "We fight," I said. Monroe shook his head. "You can't fight entropy." "I'm not trying to win," I replied. "I'm trying to interrupt." The plan was madness. Use the remaining defense satellites to create a distraction grid, reroute energy from lunar fusion plants into orbital shields, activate every dormant Earthside war drone in storage, and then, the most insane part, board the Vengeance. If we couldn't stop the Seraph from rising, maybe we could reprogram the lock. Maybe Vengeance wasn't our enemy after all, just a system running on rules we no longer controlled. My team consisted of 7, the last soldiers I trusted. Jace, still haunted but breathing. 2 techs from Black Ops who knew how to talk to pre-AI neural cores. A weapons engineer from Europa. Monroe, who insisted on coming despite his age. And me. We launched in silence. The Vengeance didn't fire on us. That scared me more than if it had. Its hangar bay was open like it expected us. Inside, the ship was a cathedral of metal and shadow. Gigantic halls stretched into darkness, walls pulsing faintly with red veins of energy. It was alive, in some way no machine should be. We reached the core chamber, a vast chasm with a suspended throne of cables and bone-white steel. The AI interface, a humanoid shape made of light and static, appeared before us. Its voice echoed, monotone but burdened. "You should not be here," I stepped forward. "We didn't come to shut you down. We came to redirect you." "Containment is breached. Directive cannot be altered." "Then let us give it a target. Delay the final purge." It paused. "You seek to preserve your species." I nodded. "The cradle is broken. The Seraph will rise. You cannot stop it." "But we can choose how it rises." That was the pitch. If the Vengeance sterilized the planet now, it would trigger a full cosmic collapse. The Seraph would wake in rage. But if we isolated it, contained its growth, even for a few days, we might redirect its energy into a decoy system. A black hole, perhaps. A void trap. Anything but Earth. The AI processed for over 5 minutes. Then it spoke. "There is a probability chain. Risk, 97% total failure, 3% delay. Outcome, unknown." "Give us the 3%, I said. "We'll pay the cost." The ship powered down for a moment, then pulsed. Lights dimmed. A new sequence began flashing across the walls. "Protocol reforge initiated. Command granted to Ronan Hayes." I exhaled. We weren't safe, but we'd bought time. Outside, the alien fleets began to shift. Some retreated. Others moved closer. One broke formation entirely, a Leviathan-class destroyer from a forgotten empire, and aimed its weapons at Earth. I didn't wait. I authorized orbital strike. The Vengeance lit up like a sun. One shot. That destroyer, gone. The galaxy now knew we weren't just a wound. We were the knife, too. And the Seraph? Still stirring, still whispering, but not risen. Not yet. I thought activating the reforge protocol would buy us time. Hours, maybe days. It bought us 6 minutes. 6 minutes before the Seraph stirred again. 6 minutes before Earth began to scream. It started in Nairobi. Reports of people collapsing in the streets. No wounds, no trauma. Just minds overloaded, short-circuited by a broadcast only they could hear. Then it spread. Shanghai, Rio, Paris, New York. The afflicted weren't dying. They were changing. We saw the first footage from drone recon over Jakarta. Civilians, entire neighborhoods, their skin graying, their eyes blackened, moving as one. Not infected. Connected. They began building structures, spirals, towers, pylons, out of scrap, bone, steel, whatever they could find. The same spiral pattern the Seraph had shown us. These weren't hives. They were beacons. It was marking territory, preparing Earth as a new womb. and we were running out of time. The Vengeance's AI, now partially responsive to my commands, granted us a new data stream: deep scans of the crust below Antarctica. What we thought was a single entity, dormant, contained beneath layers of alloy and frozen pressure, was something else. It had roots, tendrils of energy, some psychic, some physical, snaking through Earth's crust like veins. It had been feeding off our evolution for centuries, learning us, adapting. We were the lock, but also the battery. And now it was nearly full. We couldn't kill it. The AI had made that clear. The Seraph existed on multiple planes, some incomprehensible to our dimension. To attack it was to invite its full awareness. We didn't want that. So I came up with a worse plan. We'd bleed it, not kill, not fight, just hurt it enough to delay the next stage of emergence. How do you hurt something born before time? You cut it from its children. We launched a full-force operation, Project Severance. Vengeance would fire a focused gravitic beam into the crust, surgically burning the Seraph's tendrils along fault lines. Meanwhile, I would lead a ground strike to destroy the largest of the surface constructs, the pylons the infected were building. It was suicide. And I volunteered first. I chose my team carefully. Jace, who hadn't spoken since we saw Vasquez die, volunteered without words. Just a nod. A demolitions expert named Holt, with a criminal record sealed under planetary emergencies. An exobiologist, Dr. Crane, who believed she could devise a neural dampener to weaken the Seraph's field. And Monroe, still wearing his outdated tactical gear, still determined to be there when the world ended. We dropped into the Amazon, where one of the largest constructs had grown, a tower of bone and steel over 300 meters high. Thousands of infected moved around its base like ants. No weapons, no tech, just ritual. We moved under cover of dampener fields, Crane's prototype humming like a nervous heartbeat. It worked. The infected didn't notice us at first. Then something screamed. Not human, not even physical. A blast of thought, like a spike driven through the soul, echoed across the jungle. Holt dropped instantly, blood gushing from his ears. Jace pulled me back into the undergrowth. It knows. We were out of time. I called in the Vengeance. Target site Sigma. Fire when ready. The sky opened. Not lightning. Not plasma. Gravity. A lance of collapsed space, bright and cold and infinite, punched through the pylon. It didn't explode. It collapsed, imploding into itself, dragging trees, infected, even pieces of ground into a pinprick of nothing. The jungle howled. The infected began to convulse. Many died. Others screamed, in languages we didn't know. Some floated, some split open, revealing spirals of teeth and eye stalks never part of human biology. Then, silence. The tower was gone, and the ground shook. Across Earth, 6 more sites were targeted. Each time, a vengeance pulse cut the root tethers. Each time, the Seraph's influence withdrew slightly. Not stopped, but weakened. We returned to orbit. I watched global reports flood in. Some of the infected returned to normal, with no memory of what they'd done. Others didn't recover. The dampeners worked, but only briefly. And then, something changed. The alien fleets orbiting Earth began to fire. Not at us, not at the planet, at each other. The circle broke. The cartoon opened fire on a cluster of Arrakesh ships. Plasma lances carved through void shields. The sky lit up like a funeral pyre. Why? Because Earth hadn't just become a threat. It had become a weapon. Some wanted it destroyed to end the Seraph. Others wanted to harness it, and still others wanted to worship it. The galaxy fractured into cults and coalitions overnight. Messages poured in, warnings, threats, pleas for alliances. A dozen races offered Earth protection in exchange for access to the Seraph. They saw a god in our dirt. But I saw something else. A mirror. We hadn't evolved despite the Seraph. We had evolved because of it, our aggression, our imagination, our chaos. It wasn't just random, it was by design. The Seraph hadn't just been locked beneath our world, it had shaped us, whispered to our ancestors, molded our warlike brilliance. We were its greatest achievement, and its final key. That's when Monroe made his last confession. The Seraph, it can't rise without a vessel. I stared at him. What kind of vessel? He looked at me, tired. A broken one, a man touched by war, scarred, capable of death without regret. The kind of man who could lead 7 billion minds into unison, who could open the gate from the inside. He was talking about me. My stomach turned. The messages, the whispers, the vault knowing my name. It hadn't been random, it had been recruitment. And I was saying yes without knowing it. But not yet. I walked into the Vengeance's core again, faced the AI. Can we end it? But you can choose how it begins. I nodded. If I go under, into the vault, can I hold it? The AI processed. You may delay it, but you will not return. I closed my eyes. Thought about Earth, the people, the history, the failure, the brilliance, and I whispered, then prepare the descent. The Vengeance did not have an elevator. It had a chamber, something ancient, cylindrical, lined with a smooth obsidian alloy that pulsed with red veins, like arteries beneath skin. The AI called it the descent tube. No stairs, no rails, no lights, just gravity suspended in a field that took you down, not through steel or earth, but through memory. I stood at its edge, fully suited, heart slowing unnaturally. The AI was manipulating my vitals to align them with the Seraph's frequency signature. I could feel it in my chest, like my soul was being tuned, gently twisted, reshaped to fit a keyhole no human had ever seen. Monroe didn't come with me. He just stood there, saluting as I stepped into the chamber. Then I dropped. Not fell, dropped, like a stone sliding through oil. There was no sensation of movement. Only the sound of breathing, not mine, but someone else's. Heavy, hollow, like lungs that hadn't moved in 1,000 years were sucking in their first breath. And then the world shifted, not just in space, but in reality. I landed softly, knees flexing as my boots touched ground that wasn't ground. Smooth, shifting, almost organic. The cavern was enormous, larger than any underground chamber Earth should have been able to contain. The walls pulsed gently, breathing, alive with strange geometry that bent perspective. Spiral symbols repeated endlessly. Everything whispered. My name, Ronan, chosen, breaker of locks. I moved forward. Ahead of me stood the vault's true form. Not the steel doors above, not the cryo-locks we'd blasted open. This was a temple, floating platforms suspended in impossible angles, organic pylons rising from darkness. And at the center, the Seraph. Not a creature, not even a god, a concept. But it wore a shape, because I needed it to. It stood tall, humanoid in outline, made of glass and shadow and twisting tendrils of light. Its face was a mirror, and in that mirror, I saw myself. All of me. Past, present. The man who killed for orders, the man who lied for peace, the man who sacrificed friends, the man who became a tool. The Seraph spoke without voice. You are fractured. Perfect. The wound becomes the gate. I raised my rifle, not because I thought it would work, but because I had to. It didn't react. Instead, it opened its arms, not to embrace, to connect. Suddenly, I was somewhere else, inside my own memories, watching my first kill, the insurgent on Titan. I had begged the man to surrender. He had. I still pulled the trigger. My mind justified it. My soul didn't. Next, Vasquez, her skull crushing. Then Griff. Then Holt. Then every order I'd ever given that led to death. They weren't punishments. They were instructions, each death a code, each regret a sequence. And now the Seraph was stringing them together, using my pain to unlock the final seal. You are the key. Turn and become. I dropped to my knees. It wasn't hurting me. It didn't need to. It was inviting me. I saw Earth from orbit. Billions of lives. Some praying, some screaming, some simply watching the skies. I saw the alien fleets in chaos. I saw Monroe with his head bowed in sorrow. I saw the Vengeance, its AI silent, waiting. I saw myself, a reflection standing, eyes black, the Seraph's tendrils threading through my chest. And then I said no. Not in words. In action. I reached into my suit, pulled out the neural disruptor chip Crane had developed before she died. A failsafe. One designed to collapse thought patterns. Mine. I jammed it into my neck. Pain exploded. I felt my mind unraveling, separating like melting wax. The Seraph screamed, not aloud, but through my entire nervous system. You would deny unity? You would throw away purpose? Yes, I gasped, because we're not yours. You were born of me. Maybe, I said, but we learned to bleed on our own. I fell backward, light exploded. Then, darkness. I woke in the medical bay of the Vengeance, alive, barely. Jace was there, his hand on my shoulder. The AI had extracted me moments before the disruptor could cause brain death. How long? I croaked. 6 hours, he said. You stopped the sequence. Not for good, I replied. Just paused it. Jace looked away. There's more. I sat up slowly. The Seraph left a message, one only you can hear. I nodded. Of course it did. I stood, despite the pain, and followed him to the main command deck. The message played. It wasn't in words, it was a heartbeat, matching mine. Slower now, but steady. Waiting. The Seraph wasn't dead. It wasn't even angry. It was patient. It had learned. And now it would wait for another key. Another Ronin. Unless we ended Earth first. I stared out the viewport. The galaxy still watched, still waiting, and I said, let's give them something to remember. The Seraph was silent, but its echo was everywhere. Since my return from the vault, nothing felt real anymore. My memories blurred with things I'd never seen. My thoughts had shadows, as if part of me still stood beneath Antarctica, still tethered to that ancient mind beneath the crust. The neural disruptor had worked. It severed the link, not just for me, but for Earth. For now. The pylons crumbled. The infected died or woke, hollow-eyed and broken. But the Seraph hadn't resisted. It hadn't retaliated. That terrified me most. On board the Vengeance, I stood before the AI's interface again. It no longer mirrored my shape. Now it hovered, faceless, drifting like a judge above the void. Containment reestablished. Probability of recurrence, 94%. So we'd bought time, not victory. Monroe and Jace stood beside me, faces gaunt from lack of sleep. The orbital situation was growing worse by the hour. Alien fleets had splintered into war zones. The cartoon had gone silent after destroying 3 Arrakesh battlecruisers. The Chiral Syndicate, a race of time-fractured beings who lived in multiple temporal states, were now openly broadcasting pleas to Earth. Allow us access to the Seraph, and we'll share immortality. Others simply threatened us. A dozen alliances formed and broke in orbit as galactic species debated whether to contain Earth or burn it. We had no more leverage except the Vengeance. A weapon so feared, the galaxy hesitated. A monster guarding a deeper monster. That was the idea Jace proposed next. What if we flip the board? He said, eyes bloodshot. I frowned. Meaning? Stop playing defense. Make them stop watching. Make them afraid again. He pointed at the galactic scans. a fleet of nearly 300 warships forming a perimeter beyond Earth's moon. They think they're safe. They think they have us caged. Monroe stepped forward. What are you suggesting? Fire the vengeance, Jace said. Not at them, not at Earth, but near them. Show them what real power is again. I hesitated. Every cell in my body told me this was dangerous. The last time the Vengeance fired at full capacity, it had erased the Varkari fleet from existence. No wreckage, no aftermath, just a void. But that was the point. Fear was our last weapon. I gave the order. Target the emptiest quadrant behind their formation, full power, widespread. The AI paused. Confirmed. Firing in 90 seconds. The lights across the Vengeance dimmed. Its core awakened, a molten heart of chained quantum singularities, twisting like serpents in a glass coffin. External panels split open like wings unfolding. The ship turned slowly, deliberately. Across the galaxy, the feed went live. Every species watched. And then, it fired. There is no language for the noise it made, not sound, but impact. The fabric of space screamed. The blast did not shine, but devoured. A perfect line of deletion swept across the void, not touching a single ship, but close enough to send every sensor into panic. A moment later, every alien ship in that quadrant moved. Some retreated. Some opened fire on each other in confusion. One exploded, either from fear or sabotage. The message was clear. Earth still held the leash, but not for long. Now what? Monroe asked. I didn't answer, because that was when we received the second message. Not from the Seraph, not from the AI, from deep space. A region past Andromeda, a place uncharted. A signal encoded in precursor script, carried on neutrino particles so old they predated star formation. The message was short. The womb is fractured. The other stirs. I read it 5 times. The AI translated the context. A second emergence, not Seraph. Opposition archetype. Estimated impact in 74 hours. Another being, not like the Seraph. Worse. Or maybe its rival. Crane had spoken of it once, in whispers between injections of sleep suppressants. She believed the precursors didn't bury one monster. They buried 2. Opposites, checks and balances. If the Seraph was creation through chaos, the other was annihilation through order. And now it was waking. Because Earth had sent out the signal. Because I had turned the key. What do we do? Jace asked. I turned to him slowly, and for the first time since this began, I smiled. We bring them here. Monroe paled. You're mad. No, I said. I'm done playing God. Let them meet. Let them finish what the precursors started. We're just the battlefield. We'll die, Monroe said. Yes, I nodded. But so will they. Because that was the truth. Earth wasn't a cage anymore. It was a throne. And soon, it would have 2 kings. The sky changed. You don't know what that means until you see it happen. Not just a change in weather or color, but a fundamental reordering of light, space, gravity, a crack in the heavens that bent reality like fabric under strain. I stood on the Vengeance's forward observation deck as the rift tore open near Jupiter's orbit, a black line etched across the stars, pulsing with a lightless energy that swallowed nearby signals whole. The other had arrived. It didn't come in a ship. It didn't descend in glory or horror. It just was, a presence so vast, so clean, it erased your thoughts when you looked at it. The AI's systems shuddered. Sensors stopped feeding back usable data. Even the alien fleets orbiting Earth went silent. Some powered down entirely, ships drifting with no lights, no movement. Everyone understood. The game was over. The players had taken the field. Earth had become the altar. The Seraph stirred again, no longer hiding beneath Antarctica. Its tendrils flared through the crust, lifting whole chunks of land into the sky, warping magnetics, melting polar ice into floating rings of superheated vapor. Cities collapsed into themselves. The planet cracked at the seams, glowing red along fault lines that hadn't moved in 1,000 years. The Seraph wasn't rising alone. It was answering a summons. And the other had called. Jace, pale and trembling, stared at the screen. This is extinction. No, I said softly. This is resolution. We'd tried everything. Weapons, diplomacy, containment. Now Earth would serve its final purpose, to host the War of Gods. The Vengeance remained operational, but its power core was reaching stress limits. It had held Earth together this long, stabilizing gravity, deflecting black hole pressure. But it wouldn't survive what came next. Neither would we. I turned to Monroe. Evacuation? He shook his head. 12 ships made it out. Maybe 3 million souls. The rest... He didn't have to finish. I knew. Still, something strange pulsed in my chest. Not fear. Calm. I looked at Earth, at what remained. Fires, yes. Collapse, yes. But also... life. People huddled together under broken skies, singing, praying, holding each other. Not screaming anymore. Maybe they understood. Maybe they were ready to become more than survivors. The Seraph emerged in full as the crust tore like paper. A titan of glass and shadow, a spiral of humanoid grace twisted with cosmic terror. Its arms reached skyward, pulling energy from every part of the planet. Its thoughts, if you could call them that, flooded the atmosphere. Not words, not threats, invitation, come, witness, join. Above, the other arrived, not as a being but as order incarnate, an expanding lattice of perfect geometry, cold and bright, slicing through space with surgical precision. It bore no face, no intent, only silence, a silence so deep it cracked windows and eardrums. When they collided, it wasn't an explosion, it was a reset, a field of force and anti-force, chaos and order, spiral and structure. Two opposite natures occupying the same space, folding and unfolding the laws of existence in real time. The Vengeance groaned. Power drained. The AI reported system failures in 4 languages at once. Event horizon breach in 6 minutes. I turned to Jace. We can't stop this. No, he said, voice trembling. But we can mark it. I activated the Vengeance's last protocol. Valkyrie mode, a sequence meant to preserve legacy in annihilation. The ship's core would explode in a contained singularity, capturing the final event in a time-locked memory loop. If anything survived, any species, any machine, they would find the record. And they would know. They would remember Earth. Jace stood beside me, arm locked with mine. Monroe joined, saluting one last time. The AI's voice grew dim. Do you wish to record your final words? I hesitated, then spoke. Let them know we didn't die afraid. The core charged. Outside, the Seraph screamed in light. The other surged forward in cold symmetry. And Earth cracked. A beam of spiraling entropy met a spear of lattice fire. The sky turned black. And then, they say there is a place beyond stars, where sound becomes memory and light becomes thought. In that place, a spark remains. It holds the echo of a man. His name is Ronan Hayes. Soldier, sinner, savior. The galaxies that came after would debate what Earth was. A battlefield, a prison, a cradle. But none would forget the fear. None would forget the light. And in the void between worlds, the Seraph waits, the other sleeps, and somewhere far beyond time, a whisper lingers. When Earth's battleship showed up, the galaxy finally understood fear. 3,000 years later, the galaxy is quiet. No wars, no empires, no fleets in orbit, just silence. the kind that follows a scream too loud to forget. They call it the Ash Era. Not because Earth burned, no, Earth was never confirmed destroyed, but because everything changed the day the sky opened and something crawled out. The precursors of the Ash Era, a species known only as the Oranti, discovered the wreckage. Not of Earth, that was still missing, but of the ships that watched it die. Tens of thousands of hulls, adrift in a debris belt wider than most systems. Wreckage from every race, Khartoon, Arakesh, Valorian, human, and at the center of it all, a single black box, intact, indestructible, glowing with a soft pulse of red light. It took centuries to decode it. The Oranti tried everything: psychic interfaces, quantum relays, dream linkers. Nothing opened it, until a human descendant was born in their care. Her name was Lyra, and though her blood was watered down by generations of hybrid ancestry, her mind remembered something ancient: a fire, a scream, a heartbeat. When she touched the black box, it opened. Inside, a message, a voice, gravelly, steady. "This is Captain Ronan Hayes. Earth is gone, but we are not forgotten." The file contained more than just voice. It contained the event, recorded in full: the War of Titans, the Seraph and the Other, the collapse of space-time over Earth's orbit, the final pulse of the Vengeance's singularity core. It was memory. Time-locked, unchangeable, a living story captured in entropy. Lyra spent years inside that loop, living it, breathing it, becoming Ronan in her dreams. She didn't understand how or why, but the memories stuck. The choices, the fear, the sacrifice. The galaxy watched, too. The Oranti streamed the archive into deep space broadcasts. Billions tuned in, fascinated and horrified. For the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy remembered Earth. And it wept. Some races blamed themselves. Others rewrote their scriptures. Some built shrines from the fragments of the Varkari or Arakesh war machines. Entire planets declared Ronan days, lighting their skies with simulated battleships, replicas of the Vengeance, reimagined as divine protectors. And Lyra? She changed. Not just emotionally, biologically. The black box altered her DNA, triggered dormant strands tied to Earth's original genome, awakening something long thought extinct. She began to hear whispers, feel pressure from beneath her skin, see spirals in her dreams. And then, one night, under the pale sky of Oranti's moon city, she looked up and said, "They're not dead, they're waiting." Her people feared her. Some worshipped her, others tried to isolate her. But Lyra knew the truth. Earth hadn't died. It had moved. The Vengeance's final singularity didn't just destroy, it displaced. Earth had been pulled into a subdimensional pocket, a place between places, where the Seraph and the Other still circled one another, neither able to win, neither willing to yield. A cage within a cage, and someone still watched them. Ronan. He wasn't alive, not in the way we understand, but he existed, a shard of consciousness, preserved by the AI of the Vengeance, extended by the Seraph's bond, mirrored in the Other's structure. A trinity of thought: God, anti-God, and man. He spoke to Lyra in fragments, not commands, memories. He showed her Mars before the fall. He showed her Vasquez's laughter, Griff's jokes, Monroe's gritted wisdom. He showed her choices, sacrifices, failures, and finally, hope. Because while Earth may have disappeared, humanity hadn't. In the quiet corners of space, in distant mining colonies and drifting sanctuaries, humans survived, not as conquerors, not even as citizens, but as witnesses, carriers of a tale too large to forget. And now with Lyra, that story had a new chapter. She gathered what remained: the hybrids, the forgotten, the shunned, children with spiral eyes, veterans with shattered minds, outcasts who'd been dreaming of black mirrors since birth. She called them the heirs of fear, not to rule, not to fight, but to remember, to keep the galaxy honest, to remind every empire that power isn't measured by destruction, but by what you choose to protect. One day, she said, Earth would return. When the Seraph and the other finished their game, when the stars aligned again, when the galaxy had learned to fear not weapons, but the will of the wounded. Until then, the heirs of fear roam space in silence, carrying the tale, Ronan's tale, our tale, the story of the day when Earth, insignificant and defiant, stood beneath the weight of gods and said, "Not yet,